When a moment of tragedy strikes and the world watches as a loved one takes the stage for the first time after such pain, the message delivered carries more weight than an ocean of speeches made in comfort. Pain gives birth to power, and sorrow transforms into strength when it is directed toward purpose. What you witnessed was not just a wife speaking through tears, but a heart declaring war against despair, a voice rising above hate, and a soul refusing to be silenced. Greatness does not come from ease. It is born from trials that break the weak and empower the strong. When a loved one is taken too soon, when the hand of hate tries to silence a legacy, that is the moment when ordinary lives transform into extraordinary missions. Those who believe they could end the vision by ending the man have only awakened something far greater. The unshakable fire of conviction in those left behind. Do not mistake tears for weakness. Tears are fuel. Every drop is a promise that the mission will not die, that the dream will not fade, that the voice of truth will echo louder than ever before. For in the face of hate, courage grows. In the presence of opposition, determination hardens. And in the valley of despair, mountains of faith are built. The message to those who mocked, those who hated, those who thought they could crush a spirit is simple: you have no idea what you have unleashed. You have no idea of the strength that rises from tragedy, of the power that grows when love is tested, of the fire that burns when faith is all that remains. A single life can inspire a nation, but a life sacrificed unjustly can ignite a movement that will never be contained. It is in these defining moments that history is written. When the human heart refuses to break, when a widow's tears become a rallying cry, when loss transforms into legacy, then no assassin, no critic, no hater can prevail. For every attempt to destroy has within it the seed of creation, and every strike against truth multiplies its strength 100-fold. So let the world understand this: the mission is not over. It has only just begun. Hatred may kill a man, but it cannot kill an idea. Violence may silence a voice, but it cannot silence the truth it spoke. And though one leader may fall, 1,000 will rise in his place, fueled by love, sharpened by pain, and unstoppable in their purpose. Stand tall in the storm. Let courage be your armor and faith your weapon. Because when you are tested by fire, you are not destroyed, you are refined. And those who thought they ended the fight will soon realize that they only gave birth to an unstoppable force. When tragedy strikes, the natural instinct of many is to collapse under its weight. But there are some moments when grief does not destroy, it transforms. The tears that fall in public, the tremor in a voice carrying a message of love and loss, these are not signs of defeat. They are evidence of a strength that cannot be explained by logic alone. In the rawness of pain, a higher power of resilience awakens. This is why those who believe that by silencing one person they can silence a movement are always mistaken. They misunderstand the alchemy of the human spirit. For when hate attempts to win, it forges something far more unbreakable than before. One woman standing in her sorrow becomes a mountain of inspiration, not because she planned it, but because pain carved it into her soul. The moment she spoke, carrying not just her own grief, but the weight of every supporter, every believer, every person who looked up to the man she lost, the atmosphere shifted. Her words were not polished like those of a seasoned speaker. They were drenched in the authenticity of love and loss. And that authenticity carries a power that no rehearsed speech could ever match. The haters thought that ending a life would end the fight, but in truth, the opposite happens. Tragedy sharpens the vision. It takes away distractions and reveals the urgency of the mission. Suddenly, what was once a man's calling becomes a family's purpose, a community's drive, a nation's responsibility. That is the unstoppable momentum born from pain. This is the secret that the weak-minded enemies never understand. You cannot kill an idea whose time has come. You cannot extinguish a fire that burns in the hearts of millions. You cannot silence a cause that is nourished by the blood, sweat, and tears of the brave. Every attempt to weaken only multiplies the strength. Every act of hate only awakens deeper resolve. The human soul has been created to endure more than anyone can imagine. And when you combine grief with conviction, you unleash a force of faith that no opposition can withstand. Look back through history and you will see this pattern written again and again. A leader falls, and instead of fading away, their message spreads wider. A voice is silenced, and suddenly millions speak in unison. An enemy believes he has crushed hope, and instead he has planted seeds of courage in countless hearts. The assassins of truth have always underestimated the resilience of the human spirit. They believe the body is the mission when in fact the mission is eternal. And when one body falls, Another rises to carry the torch, and then another until the flame becomes impossible to extinguish. That is what happens when tears flow not as symbols of defeat, but as fuel for purpose. Every drop carries with it a vow that his life was not in vain, that his sacrifice will not be wasted, that his vision will live on with even greater force. Tears in such a moment become a baptism of courage, washing away fear and leaving only determination, and that determination becomes contagious. People who were once passive become active. Those who were silent find their voices. And those who doubted are awakened by the undeniable force of truth shining through sorrow. What the haters will never realize is that they only strengthened the very cause they despised. They believed they could intimidate, but instead they inspired. They thought they could break, but instead they built. They imagined that tragedy would scatter the faithful, but instead it gathered them closer, tighter, stronger than ever. That is why history always remembers the sacrifice of the brave, while it forgets the names of the cowards who tried to destroy them. One stands forever as a light, the other fades into the shadows of shame. And so the message is clear: pain is not the end, it is the beginning. Loss is not the conclusion, it is the ignition. When a wife stands through her grief and declares with trembling words that the mission is alive, she is not just speaking to those in the room. She is sending a warning to every hater, every critic, every enemy of truth. She is telling them that they have no idea of the strength they have awakened, no idea of the courage they have ignited, no idea of the unstoppable force that is now coming against them. Her tears are not a weakness, they are a prophecy, that what was meant for destruction will become the foundation of victory. Strength is never measured in the calm seasons of life, it is revealed in the storms. When a family, a movement, or a nation faces the cruelty of hate, the question is not whether the pain will be unbearable. The question is whether that pain will be turned into paralysis or power. And what we see in the moment of grief, when a wife stands before the world with tears in her eyes, is proof that true power is born in the darkest hours. It is not the assassin who writes history. It is the one who stands in the aftermath and declares with unwavering conviction that the mission will never die. That is the strength that transforms suffering into a legacy that outlives generations. There is a profound truth that too many people overlook. Every setback contains within it the seed of equal or greater advantage. When someone tries to destroy, they unknowingly plant the foundation of something much greater. The assassination of a leader may take away his physical presence, but it cannot take away the vision he carried. In fact, it forces those left behind to rise in ways they never thought possible. A woman who may have once stood silently in support now becomes the voice that carries the banner forward. Her tears become the ink that writes the next chapter of the story, and her trembling voice becomes the trumpet that awakens millions. This is the mystery of resilience. It multiplies when tested. Courage is not born in times of ease. It is forged in moments when the weight of the world rests on your shoulders, and you must decide whether to break or to rise. And those who thought they could break the spirit of a family or a cause are always shocked to discover that instead of breaking, it expands. One heart wounded becomes 1,000 hearts on fire. One voice silenced becomes a choir of voices shouting even louder. The attempt to end something only becomes the spark that begins everything. Think of the countless people watching such a moment, seeing grief wrapped in courage, and realizing that if she can stand through this, then they too can endure their own trials. This is why enemies can never truly win, because every act of hatred against truth creates more soldiers for the truth. Every wound inflicted awakens more warriors of conviction. The movement becomes not just about one man, but about every person who believes, every heart that beats for freedom, every voice that refuses to stay silent. The haters can attack the body, but they cannot kill the spirit, and once that spirit spreads into the hearts of millions, it becomes unstoppable. What the wife revealed without even trying is that legacy is more powerful than life itself. A life may be taken, but a legacy cannot be assassinated. It is carried in the tears of loved ones, in the determination of supporters, in the fire of those who refuse to give up. The enemies thought they were writing the end, but what they were really doing was handing over the pen to those who will now write a much greater story. A story not of defeat, but of triumph. Not of despair, but of destiny. The most powerful speeches are not those delivered in comfort, but those born in agony. They do not need fancy words or rehearsed lines, because truth carries its own weight. When she spoke, it was not just her voice, it was the voice of resilience itself. It was every person who has ever been knocked down and refused to stay down. It was every family who has ever faced tragedy and found a way to turn it into purpose. It was the eternal reminder that no matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes, and no matter how fierce the storm, it cannot last forever. And so, the enemies of truth must understand this one thing: they may have believed they ended a life, but they only unleashed a force that is greater than they could ever comprehend. That is why the words she spoke will echo far beyond the room in which they were delivered. They will ripple through communities, inspire hearts, awaken courage, and remind the world that hate cannot defeat love, fear cannot conquer faith, and death cannot silence destiny. This is the ultimate strength, turning tragedy into triumph and grief into greatness. And so the final message is this: no tragedy, no loss, no act of hate can ever extinguish the fire of a vision that was born in truth. The body may fall, but the spirit rises higher. The voice may be silenced, but its echo thunders across generations. What was meant to break now builds, what was meant to end now begins, and what was meant to destroy now creates an unshakable force of courage and faith. The tears of a grieving wife have become the seal of a promise that the mission lives on. Her sorrow has been transformed into strength, her pain into prophecy, her trembling words into an unmovable declaration. Those who believed they could end the fight will watch in disbelief as the movement grows stronger, louder, bolder than ever before. This is the truth that must never be forgotten: no enemy, no weapon, no hatred can defeat the power of love, the strength of conviction, or the destiny of a people united in purpose. What has been unleashed will not be stopped, because out of the darkest night comes the brightest dawn. And from the ashes of loss rises a legacy that nothing on earth can destroy.